Welcome to Beauty Business Matters. I'm your host, Susan Routledge, and I have yet another phenomenal guest. We have Amy Bates with us, who I've known for many years, and we touch on that. But Amy has really making a huge difference in our industry and beyond with Beauty Rebellion. And yeah, I can't wait to hear more. Welcome, Amy. So lovely to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Susan.
So, obviously, our journey started quite a few years ago. So we met, was it 2017, 18? 2017. And at that point, obviously, you were in business. Mm-hmm. You came into Salon Success Freedom, and you had a totally different career before that, and now you've got a totally different career after that. So let's go back to your very first career, and then we can carry on through, because it's absolutely fascinating journey.
Yeah, absolutely, Susan. So I've said to you before, it's strange that it is a fascinating story to everybody else, because it's just so normal to me that everything changes and evolves all the time. But my career very early on was very, very different to where it is now. Albeit I think the point of the careers that I've chosen have all got a similar thread. So I started life as a police officer. So I joined West Midlands Police at the age of 19. And spent 10 years with them doing a variety of different things, trying to be a detective, worked within child protection, vulnerable adult team, went on to the training department, which was my first introduction really of my love for teaching and helping people to learn and guide them through that process. But I left when I was just coming up to 30. I had my little boy and tried to return after maternity leave, and I had fallen out of love with the job, and it was very hard to then continue to do when I was leaving my little one at nursery to go and do something that I didn't love. So one thing I have learned all the way through my working career is if you don't love what you do, it's very, very hard to stay in a good place mentally with it. So For me, it was time to leave, and I made the decision to go. But in the latter years of being in the police, I'd started dipping my toe into the world of the beauty industry anyway, because I'd set up my own business doing bridal hair and makeup. So I used to do that alongside my role in the police. And that had grown and got to a good place. So what had happened was, when I went back after having my son, that there was so much business for weddings, and I was trying to work part-time hours, but actually I was just exhausting myself because I was doing part-time hours in the police and then running a full-time bridal business. So it was a lot. And that's why I left and went full-time into the bridal industry and doing hair and makeup. So the theme of wanting to help people, I think, is the thing that has always been there. And I felt like I couldn't achieve that in the police. Really enjoyed the role that I did as a bridal hair and makeup artist, which I still do. It's just not my main role anymore. But what that really highlighted to me is the wedding day time is such a significant time for people when they're thinking about how they look. Yes. That the types of conversations I was having with brides, so detailed conversations about how they felt about themselves, that process of getting ready for a wedding, their relationship with themselves. They used to just come out with some like really deep and personal stuff, like really quickly, like through the trial process and all of that sort of stuff. So that was the first sort of introduction to me that made me very proactive in the conversation that we're going to continue to talk about later around body image and sort of how the beauty industry impacts that, because it became really evident that just how many people are struggling with it, and actually how problematic it is and how deep-rooted it is. So my career progressed through the beauty industry then. So I had a salon for a while, which is how me and you got connected, that focused predominantly on the process of getting ready for a wedding. So all of the treatments lined up with that. The salon closed when my business partner had a different route. So we decided to close the salon because I'd had another child by that point and didn't want to keep that on my own with 2 small children. So had a home salon for a while, dealt with the COVID craziness that everybody else had to deal with, and try and figure out, you know, how to move back into work when that happened. And actually that sort of pause time that we'd had just given me a chance to do a bit of reflecting and learning, and I started to look much more deeper into the body image work and that, what I said earlier about how the industry affects people's body image, and that's evolved then into learning so much about inclusion and about how other people experience the world, and just made me really be able to see how much we are missing as an industry with the way that we support people being able to access our services, the way that we portray our services, and the ongoing impact that has. And I think that we were talking earlier before we were recording about the reputation of the industry, and I think that what that part with COVID highlighted was actually, from a government point of view, how little respect there seemed to be for our industry. And I think part of the motivator around wanting to have these conversations with more spa and salon owners is because I'm really passionate about our industry, like you are, that it is full of some absolutely phenomenal people. The money that it generates, the entrepreneurs that are within it, some of it is just mind-blowing, and it just doesn't get the respect that it deserves. And I feel that if we can actually raise our game, not just with the treatments that we provide, but help to connect the dots with the impact that we have on the communities that we work within, and the way that we support that, just to really highlight and underpin how important these businesses are for the overall UK, not just about you know, the individual person, but the impact we can have collectively, because there's salons and spas everywhere. It's such a big network of a community in itself. So the reach that we can have, and the knock-on effect for the impact we have on mental well-being and people's body image, and the way that they feel included in our industry, can be huge if people can listen and understand the message that I've got to share.
So really, when you look at it, your career, really, it has been a progression. Each stage has sort of led to where you are now, isn't it? Was there sort of a pivotal point where you just thought, I've got to do this, I've got to make this change?
Do you know, well, I did. There is a very specific point where with one of my mentors, my business mentors, where I sort of spoke to her about this kind of like frustration that I had about the impact the industry is having, but not really knowing if this conversation is a thing that people are going to be interested in learning about. So we've got a bit of an ongoing joke where anytime anything happens and we make some progress, she just comes back to me and goes, well, it is a thing then, isn't it? So there was a moment, and that was, you know, about September 2021. So as we were coming out of COVID and sort of everything warming back up, and like I was saying, I was in a bit of a transition period of sort of going. So for me, the last couple of years has been taking that idea that's really deep down in my gut of there's got to be a better way that we can do this and have a more positive impact, and then learning how to do that, how we can do that. So that's put me into places where I've retrained to be a body confidence coach. So I spent 6 months learning and working with clients to get through those qualifications, to look at the actual, you know, how individual people can improve their body confidence, and then how we can roll that into what we're doing, the services we deliver, and then how all of that expands into social media strategy, the things that we're talking, all of the things. And we mentioned earlier the podcast that I have run before, which was lots and lots of guests that talk about their experience within the industry, their experience with life, and how they've kind of got over hurdles and other services that are provided. And that allowed me a lot of opportunity to learn not just about body image, but then the world of inclusion. Took me on a journey around inclusion and how we can do better around that. So I just see myself as quite a fierce ally for all of the other underrepresented groups who I've got a big voice and I try to use it in order to raise some awareness and raise some, just a bit more empathy around how other people are experiencing the world and what we can do to help support them.
I know, because the thing is that I know we did an interview a while ago with in Beauty Directors Club, and I think from there it really, really highlighted you don't realise all of the different ways it can be. You know, I think a lot of people think, oh, it's just down to, you know, a spa not having the right size robes and things, which obviously is a huge thing. Yeah. But that is just one little tip of the iceberg with it, isn't it? So, Amy, if you can just explain a little bit more kind of thing, and then we can get into how everyone can be aware to make some change as well. Yeah.
So I think that one of the things that I like to talk about is to give people a bit more of an understanding as to why we're in this position where we are in a world where people are having really poor body image, where that's affecting so much of their life, and where businesses have evolved and developed and have just like really excluded people without even realising a lot of the time. And so I call it out with that. I say that we live in an effed up world, because there's 4 very key things that begin with the letter F that contribute to this problem. So the first one is something called fatphobia. So you've just touched on that with robes and towels. So we live in a society where the size of your body is really important to society as a whole, in that we are very fearful of living in big bodies, and smaller bodies are sort of the idealised, and we think that if you've got a smaller body it's going to erase all of your problems and you're suddenly going to be a better person and you're going to achieve all of this stuff. And a reason that it's like that is because there is so much negative emotion and anger and talk towards bigger bodies. It happens throughout society, through like the NHS, through things like the fact that we can't even cater for bodies that are above a certain size with robes and towels that they wear. There's lots of hate online. We live with a huge amount of diet culture that's really toxic. So the challenge that comes out whenever I talk about this is about this whole thing of health and body size. And actually it's really not as cut and dry as people think that it is. It's the way that we're led to believe that big bodies are unhealthy and small bodies are healthy, because it's just not like that. And so this is a topic that we could do a whole podcast episode on its own. So just to kind of keep it nice and tidy is to just be aware that we have these particular rules that go out that they're just accepted by everybody. Diet culture makes it 10 times worse. They make a lot of money off us wanting to be in smaller bodies, and it's not as simple as what we think it is. And we need to be aware that fat phobia exists within a lot of people because of the messages that we've grown up with and the things that we've been told about bodies. And even when we are kind people and we want to do nice things, our unconscious bias sits in our brains. It's unconscious. We don't know it's there, but it feeds the way that we respond to people, the way we think about things, the decisions we make in business, etc., etc. So that's the first one. It's important to know it's there. The second one is the fashion industry. So the fashion industry churns out, every 10 years, they give us a different body type that is fashionable. And we know that our bodies are not a fashion accessory, but the subconscious side of our brains think that we still should be able to fit into these fashion ideals with our body. So when time I was growing up, Kate Moss was very trendy. Yes. Her particular body type was very tall, slim, not much fat on the bones at all, no curves, small chest, pale skin, able-bodied, lots of things that were relevant to her and that kind of 90s fashion. And then as time has evolved in my lifetime, you've had people like the Kardashians that have suddenly made body types more trendy in a different way. So we now see that curves are something that people want. We want tiny waists and big bottoms, so much so that people will pay to go and have fat sucked from one part of their body and into their bums,
and it's
to make
a very
it bigger.
extreme look as well, isn't
absolutely.
it?
We've seen a big boom in fillers in eyebrows, lots of different things that have become trendy because that's what's being churned out by celebs, by the catwalks and that sort of thing. So what the fashion industry does is creates this ideal body type, and our industry provides services to help people create that body type. And the reason that then can be problematic is that we're just perpetuating that cycle of, well, we changed what fashion your body should be now, so we'll help you get that. And then in 10 years' time, it'll be something else, and we'll be doing something else, and there'll be a million new treatments. And I get that we're here to make business. We run businesses where we need to make money, but we do need to understand a little bit more about what's going on under the surface. So that's the fashion industry. The next one is finance and profit. So this is where we fit in, because we make money from people's insecurities. Unfortunately, that is the crux of a lot of the basis of it. There are lots of businesses who do things in a much more ethical way. So I am generalising a little bit, but I do need people to know that if we were to wake up tomorrow and everybody in the world felt good in their bodies and felt good about who they were, what their bodies looks like, which industries would suffer? And diet industry would be a massive one that would suffer.
Yes.
Parts of the fitness industry for those people who and businesses who push at us that the only benefits for exercise are to lose weight and to tone up and to buff up and those sorts of things. The beauty industry certain parts would significantly suffer if they are businesses that are solely focused on the aesthetic appearance of people, which is not all of them, but a lot of them. So we need to look at how we can continue to be financially good, profitable, but look at the ethics that are underpinning that to give us a bit more longevity as well, because people are waking up to expecting better things from businesses. And then the final part, and I feel like for an industry that is made up really predominantly of women, the numbers are quite high with the amount of women that are in the industry. It's really important for the last one, which is to do with feminism and the feminism movement, which is moving us away from old-fashioned values and belief systems around what women are good for and why we're on this planet. So as we know now, we're here for lots of good things and we bring amazing things to the table, and we're not just here for making babies and looking pretty. We've got much more to bring to the world, and in order to be successful, we don't need to be married off. It doesn't signify anything about who we are. However, the type of society that we still live in and have grown up in, even though it has evolved, is one that puts that weight on women to be pretty, to be a certain body style and type, in order to basically get married and have some kind of social status. And that is, those are really old things that have evolved through time. We've watched it on things like Bridgerton and stuff like that, where you see that those are the things that are important. But by having these beauty ideals and these standards that we keep holding people to all the time, we're just perpetuating that cycle. And that the feminism movement, as it's moved on to bring women forward, but it's gathered up lots of other people on the way, and it's now supporting people from underrepresented groups and marginalised communities who are suffering with the same kind of reputation that women have had to fight for. That we just move on and we exclude people as we go along, and it'll be a new group and that we're trying to build something more positive where everybody can just be authentic and be valuable in the world without it being based on what they look like.
Because that's the thing, isn't it? Everyone's judging everyone
all the time,
and as I say, it is when you look at some of the things, you can see that I can see, especially with like on the aesthetic side, there's some beautiful girls who are having treatments which they really just do not need and things, and it's just
it's really, well, I think you mentioned aesthetics specifically there, and what's really interesting to know as well is that the body image issue that I'm talking about, I mean, I've got some stats written down that have come from different reports that have been done that are just alarming. But one of the more recent ones that I've seen was when I was at Pro Beauty, not last time, the time before, and the aesthetics. One of the aesthetics magazines was the front page of that was talking about body dysmorphia within the aesthetics industry and the rise in body dysmorphia for practitioners who are now starting to see that because what's happening for people who are working in aesthetics, the image of perfection that they are surrounded by on a daily basis, and the conversations like what I was having with brides about what they want to look like for their wedding day. Yeah. Aesthetic practitioners are dealing with that on a daily basis of what the perfection that people want forever. So to try and then switch off from that and keep a brain in a place of understanding like who you are and having, not getting sort of swept away with some of those perfection ideals is really hard. And actually it's really starting to show in the numbers that they're then having an increase in body dysmorphia. And body dysmorphia is a really serious mental health condition that affects people's daily life, So it's not just asking business owners to understand the body image and inclusion issue from a client perspective. It's about how it's affecting us within our industry as well, because it affects everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, and it's only when you start to delve into it that you realise how sort of even like you can't help but be sort of wrapped up in it kind of thing, can you?
No, not at all.
But how can we start to make changes? And I mean, our industry has a lot of influence. We need to start to make these changes. So how can someone start to make some of these changes with their clients and their team and everyone? Because I mean, it's absolutely huge.
Yeah. So what I want to touch on before we move on to that, Susan, about what they can do is I want to tell you why they should do it as well.
Fabulous,
all right.
Yes.
So not just it's not just a nice conversation that we're having and going, oh yeah, that's interesting, Amy, and I can see how we probably do need to do that. There is so much benefit as a business owner to being a business that is body positive and inclusive, because there is a huge amount of potential clients out there who are not coming and accessing our services. So when I'm talking about inclusion, we're talking about such a huge range of groups of people who talk to me regularly about not being able to access services very well. So you've got clients who are living with a physical disability who quite often cannot even get into salons or spas properly, who can't move around them properly, where we don't have facilities for them. Yep. You've got people who are neurodivergent, who get a lot of anxiety, have different sensory needs that we don't know about, because if we don't live with that, we don't know about it. You might have people who are dealing with different religious beliefs or ethnicities, people going through menopause, people who are like young adults who are having changes with their bodies. You might have people going through different cancer treatments, for example. So things where their bodies or their minds require some extra thought and support. And we talked earlier about people who are in larger bodies, and I talked to you the other day about some examples of horrendous stories I've heard where people have showed up to salons and had people laughing when beds have broken and stuff like that, because the facilities don't cater for, like, they've got like a weight threshold on them. They don't have robes and towels that fit. So people just go, I ain't going because I don't want to have to deal with having half my body showing and stuff like that. So there's such a huge amount of people who physically just go, I'm not bothering, I'm just not going to go to use those services. So we're missing a lot of money, ultimately, right? So there's a statistic, I think it's, let me just double check, 33... So businesses that are actively inclusive are 33% more likely to outperform businesses that are not inclusive, who don't make an effort, who don't have diversity in their staff and their clientele. So the profit margins are much bigger. There's lots more money to be made because you can access people who are not currently coming. It also improves how much your clients will stay with you. So your client retention will be so much better, because if you can attract and look after clients who previously won't go somewhere, don't like going somewhere, because they don't feel safe, because they don't feel seen and valued, they don't think they're going to be catered for, it's too much of an anxiety causing thing to go. If you can minimise all of that and do those things for them, they're going to stay. Because, I'm not particularly bothered about going to places, but I just had to change hairdresser a few months ago, and I cannot tell you the amount of hurdles that I had jumped over in my own mind to get to find a new hairdresser, because I'm a bit particular about who does my hair. And I don't like having to ring and speak to somebody on the phone. So I was trying to find one that got a good online booking system. So that initially eradicated a load of people. Then I went on to a few and their online booking system was rubbish and I couldn't book it. So that cut them out. So I've ended up at one, first of all, that managed to do the online booking system well. Then I went, and actually it was the more expensive of the salons as well. Yeah. So the price completely got moved because of the ability to deal with some of my weirdnesses in my head. You get what I mean? So that's a really basic thing about accessibility and how many different avenues you have to jump over to get to somewhere. I went to the hairdressers, had my hair done, liked the hairdresser, liked what she said, booked an appointment to have my colour done next time, got a phone call a week before to say that hairdresser was leaving and they were swapping my hairdresser. So I was like, oh my God, no, I can't swap to a new hairdresser because I've only just moved and so that sent me off in a little tizzy. These are simple things, but honestly, the amount of anxiety that I had about having my hair done with a new person, I ended up going up, had to meet them, had to let them have a conversation. It was quite ridiculous, but that's just one example.
That's not quite ridiculous, though. The thing is that is, that's something that we should be aware of
the different things that are going on. And for me, I'm not dealing with any of the things that some of the people I've mentioned are dealing with. So the planning and preparation that goes in to go in somewhere if you've got a physical disability or if you're neurodivergent can be so much bigger because you just don't want to have to deal with the difficulties when you get there. So a rewind. My point is, if they come and you do a good job, they're going to stay because they won't be bothered about finding a different place because they like the security and the knowledge of how you've looked after them. It also means they're going to spend more money there as well because they're not going to want to go and have to spread it out around different places. So again, we're building into that profit, that client retention. The referrals will be so good as well because people talk. A lot of our business comes from referral, from word of mouth, and you want your referrals to be about these really positive things, not just, it's the cheapest place to go, or, they'll do the deals, or, my hair particularly looked nice this time, or you've had this, good result. Results are important, but it's not everything for everything all the time. So we want these referrals to be really good. And you've mentioned earlier about the team. It's the impact that changing the narrative through your spa or salon will have on everybody that touches it is massive, and creating a culture within your team that is body positive and inclusive will help with your staff retention. It will change the energy and dynamics. It will teach people how to advocate for themselves, set better boundaries within each other, so it minimises some of the conflicts and the difficulties within the team. If you've got something simple like the way that you handle diet culture and stuff within your staff room, that will change how people start to feel about themselves. Doing the work around their body image changes how they feel about themselves, changes the dynamic in the conversations they're having with clients, the energy exchange, the energy levels are more positive, people are more self-aware. You get loads of different innovation and ideas from your staff. You've got staff turning up who want to be there because the environment is good and the culture is strong. And so it's just, there's so many reasons why.
Yeah, but as well, I know when we did the interview the other week, I know one of our members said when she was a young therapist, she'd gotten someone in a big body come to salon where she was, and she just didn't know how to cope with it.
Yes.
And so she practically just ran away.
Yeah.
And that is, because if you knew how to handle that situation, then it would be a totally different thing. So, the thing is that it is a confidence thing, because being able to sort of know you're doing the right thing. And I think that comes into a lot of sort of, whether it's someone who's trans or whatever, like, it's just not taught. Is it?
No, it's not. And we don't talk about it as well. So like in that situation, so one of the other questions that came up when we were doing it was people asking me about like offending people and saying the wrong thing. And I think that the lack of sort of conversation and confidence to talk about things that might be a bit difficult or might be a little bit awkward, it's a lack of learning, it's a lack of education. And that will go when you're dealing with younger therapists, less experienced therapists. You're then looking at, well, what's the experience and the education higher up and with the managers, and how are the team leaders encouraging those conversations, and how would they answer it? Because if they don't know, they can't answer it properly either, can they?
But to be honest, even an experienced therapist would have still struggled in that situation. They just maybe have been a little bit more diplomatic about it. That's the only difference. They'd still have had anxiety about how to handle that client.
Would have. And I think that the other issue with it, Susan, as well, and this is really important for any of your listeners that are salon and spa managers or directors, is that what we also need to be looking at when those situations arise is, why has that situation come up in the first place? So that one in particular was talking about the basin seat not being wide enough for a particular client to sit down in. So when situations like that happen, they are a great opportunity for learning and for implementing. One of the things that I teach is called the Beauty Business Inclusion Cycle, and it's all about how we work through some of these things. And it starts with empathy. We need to connect to how other people feel and how other people are experiencing the world. The next part is education. So we need to fill any gaps. So if somebody highlights a problem to you, a way that they've been made to feel, something like that, we need to go away and learn about it, learn how to do something differently. So in that scenario, the therapist, however she's dealt with it. What we need to then do is we need to talk to them about how it was dealt with. We need to try and, if there's a situation that's arisen with the client, try and learn from the client and see how they feel, or if there's something that could have been done better. We need to investigate, how can we stop that happening? So do we go and we look at the basin size? Do we have a way of having a different basin somewhere else that people can have their hair washed, whatever that is? So we're then looking at our processes, looking at our equipment. And then you can go and implement those things, make the changes, you can communicate them, all of that sort of stuff. So whenever you've got these issues that occur, what we don't want to do is just go, oh my God, that client couldn't fit her in the chair and I didn't know what to say. It's all a bit awkward. So we've just got her done and we've ushered her out the door. Sorry, and nobody ever speaks about it again. Actually, they're a learning opportunity. So we have to lean into these uncomfortable moments and deal with them. So the inclusion cycle would start with empathy. We'd then look at education. Once we've learned what we want to do, we want to implement the changes. When we've implemented them, we need to talk about them. So this is where we use your social media, you use your marketing, it feeds into your marketing. So Andrea was telling me that she has got a client who really values the fact that the bed that she has in her salon is really quite wide. So the client, who is quite tall and quite in quite a bigger body, is really comfortable because she knows that she can get onto the bed, she can turn over, doesn't creak and crack every time she moves, and she feels really comfortable and confident in that salon because she knows she doesn't have to deal with worrying about the bed. So that's marvellous. So let's talk about that. Let's go and make a social media post about that, because for anybody who doesn't come to your salon because they are scared that they're going to break the bed, if they come across that on your feed, that you've got a bed that other clients are really happy with because they're in bigger bodies and they love the fact that they don't have to worry about getting on your bed, what's that going to do? That's going to make them go, oh, Oh, okay, well, that's great. I don't need to worry about that then. Maybe I'll give that salon a try. Then that's where we start to bring these new people in. So the communication part of it's really good.
Yeah.
So if you something's not going well, you've learned about it, you've made some changes, you've got to tell people about them. And even if you have got things going on in your salon that are not from things that have gone wrong, they're just good things that you do. So, that might be something like you have particular days of the week that you turn the music off and you don't have to have chit-chat for your neurodivergent clients who just don't feel comfortable having to deal with all that interaction. You need to be talking about that and talking about why you do it and what the benefits are and how people can, what days they can book and how to book it. Do they need to use a booking system so they don't have to speak to somebody, or do you only take bookings on the phone? Do you get, when I'm talking back to that story earlier? And then the last part of the cycle is evaluation. So what you want to be doing is using your feedback forms and however you get feedback from your clients for more than just looking for a good review. Actually, what you're doing is you're looking as to how you can continue to underpin these values that you have to be better, be more body positive, be more inclusive, and find out how they actually experienced their time with you, not just from yes, it was lovely and I had a great treatment, I'm really pleased with the results, but actually, how did they feel about themselves while they were there, their bodies? How accessible was it? Was there anything that worried them before they came? Is there anything that helped them feel less anxious when they were there? Loads of different questions that can feature in that. And when you've read it, you go back to the start of the cycle where you tap into your empathy. You read it with an open mind, not oh my God, they're saying we're terrible. Just open your heart, open your mind a bit, go, okay, we didn't do that bit quite as well as I would like to. Let's go. Educate ourselves, implement some new stuff, communicate it, and we'll start again with the feedback and we work around the loop again. So you can see that there's loads to learn then from your clients and make it really positive, a positive impact, but talking about it and be more confident to have these conversations and learn about each other and what we need.
So the programs that you do then, Amy, how does that work? And you're practically like the thing is, I know that with your programs, you are hopefully going to get them happier endorsed and things. But even without that, like, how does it work? Is it an online program? Is it you coming in and talking through, or how does that work?
So at the moment, there is an app that people can download called the Beauty Rebellion app. The Beauty Rebellion app is basically my hub of everything. So clients can use it because there's loads of body confidence training in there, signposting services, all of that sort of stuff. So it's a great little tool for the therapists and the team to use for their clients. But also within that is a training platform built into the back. And in there, I have got a program called the Body Positive Practitioner Program. So this is aimed at therapist level who are, or for business owners that are that are solo therapists. So you can learn how to understand your clients better. So some of the problems that people are dealing with, look at your own body image and your own sort of biases towards things, and start being a little bit more self-aware, working on some of those things, and then learning the basics of improving body image and being more body positive, and how that threads through treatments and the kind of things that you can implement, the changes that you can make. So it's based at therapist level because it's designed to help people work on themselves as well as tying things into the business and the client interactions. And then I do consultancy work with like manager level and above, so that I can, the stuff we're talking about on here, teach it to them, help them implement it. But for January, there's a new group program that I'm going to be putting on where salon and spa managers and owners we can work through all of this over a 6-month period, so that we can learn it and implement it bit at a time. Because actually, there's loads to do. And if you're really invested in wanting to sort of change the dynamic and really open your doors up to more people, then I don't want it to be, it can be a bit overwhelming when you first start, and it's not meant to be like that. It's more about making that commitment to wanting to make the changes, to being open-minded, to learn, and then we'll just work through it a bit at a time. So that's coming in January. That might suit different learning styles more. Some people like me to just come and go, right, let's do your business and your business alone. Other people like to work more in that group environment, share ideas, share the learnings more so, things that they've picked up and gone, okay, didn't realise that was a thing. So there's a few different ways, basically, depending on how people like to do
because as
stuff.
well, all of this is ever evolving.
Absolutely.
It's because there's always new things and new ways to do things. And I love the idea that, because I'm one of those people that, like, if I see something, I just want to put it all in place. I just want to make it all right and make sure I've got everything perfect, and it's to a certain standard. Yeah. But really, that's not realistic, though, is it?
It's not at all. And I think that's where what we've just talked about with the inclusion cycle is really important, because I think people need to understand that it's never going to be perfect. It's always going to be evolving. It's always going to be changing, because you're always going to be talking to people and learning new things. So it's not just a handbook of this type of person needs this, because actually even within the different types of people we've touched on today, there'll be loads of variation in that anyway. It's more about, as business owners, wanting you to sort of commit yourselves to wanting to do better and making that a bit of a lifelong commitment. And that do better is about learning yourself and educating yourself, and wanting to take feedback, take those difficult situations that arise and turning them into something more positive, because there's always an opportunity to learn. It doesn't matter what's going on, and you learn from the good stuff as well. It's not just about waiting for something to go wrong. And I think we obviously went on a very long way round. The question you asked me earlier was about what can people do. And I think that obviously I am here to come and work with. I've got a book that's due out at the end of December, which will go into more detail on this, which you will have all of the details of for anybody that's listening. But
we'll put the link in the show notes as well.
But in the interim, I think that the first thing to do is to just go and have a look at your socials and your website, because that tends to be the first place that people land. And I want you to just put an imaginary pair of glasses on that mean that you're not looking at it through your eyes. There's a bit of a tint on there of how do other people see this when they come here, when they land on my social media, when they land on my website, what message is coming across. And it's not to critique it, it's to actually just take a really good look at the images that you're sharing, look at the language that you're using, look at the accessibility functions that are on there. Do you use alt text for people who are visually impaired, so that they can understand what your images are looking like? Do you have any plugins that are on your website? Are your images that you are using the same type of body all the time? Is there some variation in it? Are you just, do you just show, is it all like one particular part of a person's body because that's the only bit of treatment that you do? So there's really no way of knowing what kind of clients come to you. Is it a place that feels very exclusive? Is it a place that feels really trendy? Is it a place that feels like if you were trying to visit and you had some physical accessibility questions, how well could you find out information about that? If you were a person who was trans, what would they see around your gender language and things like that? If you were there's loads of different things. So I just want you to have a look and you can sit with another person and ask them to do it with you if you want to, and just actually have a look and just get a feel for, if you're looking at it from a body image and inclusion point of view, what message is coming out of it. And then you can start to think about that. So when you are creating a social media feed that wants to be more body positive, wants to highlight some that you are a business that is striving to be more inclusive, then how can you do that? So you can just start to think about that then moving forward, so you can start to maybe diversify some of the images that you're using. When you are making, if you're making posts that are not pictures of your clients, but you're putting pictures of people on there, vary the things that you're searching for. Look at the different types of stock images that you can use. So rather than looking at the standards that we see all of the time, spa in particular is so bad for the type of images that it uses. And it's a really sweeping statement, but I am going to stand by it because I have looked at a lot of spa websites. And it's the same type of person, you know, it tends to be lots of women that are slim, with long, beautiful hair, with white skin, with no physical disabilities visible. It does not scream that anybody that looks different to that is seen here, you know, and it's just standard practice. It's just what they do. There's just no thought behind it. So I think what I'm asking people is to just think a bit alternatively and actually question the decisions that you make.
And when you say about spa as well, because the thing is, someone is quite vulnerable. They're not in a lot of clothes when they're there. Yeah. They can't hide behind anything, kind of thing. So
absolutely.
You are very right about the images when you just sort of like think about it. Oh my word, Amy! I just want to do all of it.
I've just given you a whole load of
Obviously, we can put all of the details into the show notes of how to get in touch with you about the app, everything like that, and keep it all updated as well with the book and everything like that. But you know, I just want to say hats off to you. You are doing an absolutely phenomenal job with this, you know, and I think you know, it takes a certain kind of person to have your kind of determination. And it's just, as I say, I mean, I've known you for a long time, but you know, you are just, the awareness that you bring in is outstanding. And I just want to take my hat off to you.
I really appreciate that, Susan. I do.
And it's this, as I say, I'm sure will help so many. I think anyone listening to this is going to be like thinking, oh my word, yes, I need to like do some changes. Or I'd like to think that anyway.
And what I'd really love as well is if the people that feel that, please reach out to me, because it's really good for me to know where the pockets of people are that are behind the message. But also it's really important, I could spend my time working one-to-one with body confidence clients and just keep chipping away at the individual people. And I don't do that because I'm aiming to try and help fix some of the problem at its source. But when we go even deeper into that subject, the source of this problem is not just the salon and the spa owners. It goes even higher than that. We've got trade shows. We've got the people who have got the money at the top. And what I want is what I want to get to a position is where there's more people that are able to see it and say, come on, you up there with the money, you up there with the influence, let's do better. Because there's I'll get lots of stories, I hear lots of things, and I see that the blinkers and the stops that get put on from the people who have the power. And if the people who have the power set the standard from the top, so I like to work with spas as well, because spas set standards that roll out across the industry as well. When it starts at the top and what goes there rolls down, and yes, we can have small amounts of impact as the therapists and the salon owners, but actually we want that message to get
collectively.
Higher.
We can do it collectively.
Collective is much more powerful, and what it will do is just raise the whole profile of the industry and what the impact that we bring as a business on a whole, and that it will be more positive. And your one of your students that you've got in your group who said, you know, there's salons that are taking work away from GPs because we've got more expertise in helping people with skin conditions and all of that sort of stuff. That message needs elevating.
Yes.
Like, we really, really want to raise the entire reputation, and that's the doing it comes. The further up we can go and the wider we can cast the net, the better that reputation changes, and it has an impact on everybody then.
It'd be fantastic if, as an industry, we can just be a shining light.
Absolutely.
It'd just be
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy.
That's okay.
This has been...
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.